Warning, the following review contains an unpopular opinion about the upcoming Pokémon X and Y. If you are looking forward to Pokémon X and Y, then Cass understands, but he has already made this video, so there's not really much point in complaining in the comments until you've actually finished the video. Ensure your dismissive responses are properly spelled.
Hello there, I'm Cass. I've expressed disinterest, shall I put it, in the upcoming Pokémon X and Pokémon Y. I could not be less excited for Pokémon X and Y if I tried to be. Yeah.
I have several reasons for that, not the least of which being the lack of effort being displayed by the creative folks at Game Freak, instead taking ideas from other franchises like Nintendo's, without any understanding as to how to properly implement them while continuing outdated and unnecessary design choices.
And cue the multiple comments from people telling me all about Mega Evolutions. Which is not a new feature at all. It's the exact same thing as Form from Pokemon Platinum. Technically Ruby and Sapphire if you count Deoxys. They're the same Pokemon, just with different stats and forms, and you choose whether or not to give them the item that allows them to change forms. Am I the only one who didn't notice this?
If it sounds like my opinion has only worsened since I first talked about it, it has, along with the disappointment that was Harmonite. However, if you are looking forward to Pokemon X and Y, then all the power to you. I'm not here to make anyone feel bad for looking forward to it, and I wouldn't want to take away any enjoyment that anybody gets from it. All I'm doing is giving my opinion, not just as a Pokemon fan, but as a fan of Game Freak. One more thing, can we just drop the idiotic nostalgia goggles argument as if having any previous experience or enjoyment of said series automatically invalidates one's opinion?
Yes, me having any connection to the series before this one means that I can't say a single negative thing about Pokemon X and Y without being slapped on with the nostalgia goggles argument. I like Pokemon Conquest and defending the series against the inhumane garbage known as PETA, but that's nothing. I'm just a hater. I'm stuck in the past. Yes sirree. Blinded by nostalgia, I'm a Gen 1er who can't get past the very first game he ever played in the series. There's only 151 in my very first game ever played in the series. Pokemon Gold and Silver. Morons.
I say what I do about Pokemon X and Y as a fan of Game Freak. One who can safely say that yes, every main entry in the Pokemon series is a good game. I may not like certain aspects or certain entries, but they are good games, and I'm sure X and Y will be fine. But as a fan of Game Freak, I know they can do better than just good. I expect better than good from them. To put an end to the topic, and so no one can ever say that I never said anything nice to these unreleased games, I would like to say that the designs shown thus far have been really well done. Uncreative sword notwithstanding. I think the biggest issue lies not in the series itself, but a lack of a proper rival series, since Pokemon sells as well as it does, and there's no real competition.
Digimon, digital monsters, Digimon are the champions. Digimon, digital monsters, Digimon are the champions.
Yes, people, I know Digimon exists. I grew up during the time period when Pokemon and Digimon were the two most popular things out there, but show of hands, how many of you actually played a Digimon game as opposed to watching the mini animated series that would run on Fox Kids TV or YTV? Oh, ha ha ha, put that hand down, no you didn't.
Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 80s, ever since Pokemon became the cultural phenomenon that it was in the late 90s, companies have been trying to imitate its success, and of course, competition has sprung up. There have been numerous attempts to capitalize on the success of the Pokemon series, and while many game companies have given their variation on the formula of collect all these monsters from X to support our toy line, none of them have been able to hold a candle, much less have anywhere near the same level of success as Pokemon has. To go back to that earlier example, let's take a look at the lifetime sales of the Digimon series. Now compare that to the lifetime sales of the Pokemon series. How about the sales of the Metroid series? Only 17 million? What is wrong with you? You know what? Forget it. The point is that there really isn't any competition between Pokemon and its contemporaries, thus not putting any pressure on Game Freak to do better than they are already, especially considering that many of those games are, frankly, rather poor.
And for the month before Pokemon X and Y launches worldwide, we'll be taking a look at one of the more recent and interesting attempts to create a Pokémon-esque series. Welcome to SpectrobeStember.
Spectrobes is an RPG series very much in that same Pokemon-like vein that began on the DS in 2007 and, at least at the time of this recording, ended on the Wii in 2010. They were published by Disney Interactive, and if there was one company that could make a reasonable attempt to take out Pokemon, it would be Disney, with its smart marketing strategy and worldwide appeal. In fact, Spectrum holds the honor of being Disney's first original IP for a video game. The series began with Disney executives looking for a quote-unquote Pokemon killer made with an anime style. As one might imagine, such a project for Disney got the attention of some extremely talented people. Phil Barlow of Alphen's Universe fame came up with the original concept of Spectrobes along with Helen Meyer. By the by, if this artwork looks similar to Ben 10, that's because Tom Perkins, the artist of Ben 10, was trained by Barlow himself during the production of Extreme Ghostbusters. Anyway, the original concept was going to be a PS3 game which took place on Gina's homeworld, with her being the star of the game and Roland creating the Spectrobes by splitting a white light into 7 colored species. But since Disney was, well, stupid, they cut out Barlow and Meyer and handed the project over to Jupiter, a studio previously known for their work on the Pokemon pinball games and Kingdom Hearts Chains of Memories. The only things from the original concept that did make it into the final product were a few characters and the series name. And all of this happened after 5 happy years of negotiation with Disney lawyers to get the project greenlit. Nice.
It's a shame that the game wasn't built with the superior hardware of the PS3, coupled with the original creator's premise in mind, because it sounded like it had a lot of potential. But as it stands, how is the Spectro teams that we did get? Well, let's dig into Spectrobes and find out.
The story begins as Roland and Gina, who don't look like they're old enough to be interstellar cods, maybe they're interns, are sent on a mission to investigate a distress call. The distress call leads them to a mysterious old man in a capsule, and an even more mysterious enemy known as the Crawl that begin appearing alongside the only hope for the galaxy, the Spectrobes. With a new threat attacking the star system, Roland must nerf more Spectrobes and stop the invasion of the Crawl. Disappointing as it may be that Gina is stuck to the ship when she was planned to be the hero of the series, the story is pretty decent. The characters are alright for the most part, but the Crawl, while often uncreatively designed, make for a threatening group of unknown enemies. If there is one thing that Jupiter excels at, it's creating a compelling universe. This would be the case with the reimagining of Shibuya in The World Ends With You, but that's besides the point. While the characters and story won't set the world on fire, they're more than engaging enough to get you hooked into this lengthy RPG adventure. Spectrobes has you travel to different planets and parts of planets in search of more Spectrobes and minerals that contain Minergy to power them up. As you explore the region of each planet, you'll come across these black tornadoes, and if you touch one, you'll commence a battle. If you're thinking you can beat these enemies simply with brute force, think again. You're practically useless in combat, as your weapons will deal pitiful damage to the Crawl, but thankfully, the Spectrobes are a huge help and a ton of fun to use in battle. Some of them have multiple attacks and abilities, lock-on attacks, range moves, ability to charge attacks 3 types, jeez. For a game aimed at kids, it's much more complex than you'd think. Then again, this is from the folks who gave you The World Ends With You, this is kinda standard for Jupiter. A shame that the AI is so poor, but ultimately the battles are let down by the fact that they're just pointless. A typical battle can take you from 1 to 2 minutes, and yields you very little Minergy, as well as a tiny bit of money. In that same time period it takes you to finish one battle, you can unearth 5 times the amount of Minergy for all 3 stats, and some rare ones that go for a fair bit of coin, even more when you get better drilling equipment that lets you drill even faster. I'd be lying if I said I didn't like combat, but again, the smarter decision is just to save your time digging up new fossils and give them minerals which look nothing like their real life counterparts. Well, except for the diamond. It'll save you a ton of time that you can spend getting mad at the boss fights. And I do not like these boss fights at all. They are so tedious. At first, they're very frustrating, but they quickly become such a bore. Worse yet, there's almost no variation. The pattern changes for attacks, but the layout is almost always the same. 2 smaller Crawl, 1 giant Crawl, you gotta kill them all. To reiterate, battles are enjoyable, but they're ultimately pointless because of the other major focus of the game. Searching for spots to dig with your child Spectrobes and drilling into the ground for fossils and fossil fuel to help you out with your everyday activities. There's also Cubes, which help flesh out the world of Spectrobes and unlock more modes, but it's mainly fossils and minerals that you'll be digging up. This is where the most fun and frustrating aspect of Spectrobes lies. Drilling can be immensely enjoyable as you dig up a new fossil for the first time and discover some great new minerals to help feed your new allies. Can be, but since the game revolves so heavily around drilling and excavating, it gets really tedious really fast. There is equipment that does try to change things up, but aside from the Giga tool for quickly extracting minerals, you're better off just using the drill. There's a lot of depth to be found in Spectrobes, almost overwhelmingly so, like how stats have their own levels, but you'll likely forget about all that as you slowly fall into a routine of digging, healing, feeding, and evolving. There you go, Spectrobes! Not to say that it's not fun, but said fun and joy comes with a noticeable lack of polish and frustration aplenty. Also, planets don't feel very distinct aside from visuals. It seems like every planet has the same Spectrobes in them with the exception of one species exclusive to each. That makes sense, different geographical locations result in the exact same species living there. Also, while we're talking about the failures of logic, how do you escape from a purple tornado made out of aliens? Illogical and overwhelming as it may be, Spectrobes does succeed in providing a truly unique experience on the DS, despite some glaring execution, both in terms of the mechanics and the presentation. The polygons look fine for an early DS title, but the sprite work looks really out of place and low quality on its own. The bird's eye view fails to hide the low texture resolutions for environments, but the animation in battles are impressive enough to overlook that and the mediocre animation on rolling on parts. Besides, it isn't anywhere near as bad as the CG is. Character artwork is well done, with each character showing a wide range of emotions, even if some of them are underused. It's not as varied as the sequel, but that's a tale for another time. One thing that the sequel and the original do share is bland sound design. It's nothing that'll make you want to stop playing, but it's very, very uninspired MIDI tunes and boring sound effects. You're better off putting on some of your own music instead. Finally, let's talk about the Spectrobes. While it's a shame that Barlow wasn't a part of development, the designs that we did get are still pretty neat. Like Pokemon, part of the appeal are the creatures in the game, and the design team did an admirable job in crafting a crew of critters that had their own unique style and individual looks. There's some really great designs here, like the swordfish that turns into a sword serpent. Of course, there's some less inspired designs, but the good ones are so good that you're willing to overlook them. Quite frankly, the presentation summarizes Spectrobes as a whole. It has some rough edges, but the good parts of it make up for the bad.
The very first Spectrobes, fun as it may be, feels very rushed and unpolished, and could have used a lot more time in development to iron out the flaws that the game does suffer from. It's not a bad game per se. Those of you looking for a worthwhile RPG on the DS will find a unique and truly worthwhile experience. But for the rest of you looking for a good RPG, it simply can't come recommended. Not when you have its sequel, which we'll talk about next week. Until next time, game on, my friends. Blinded by nostalgia, I'm a Gen 1er who can't get past the very first game in the series he ever played, Pokemon Gold and Silver. Morons. It's backwards. Oops.